Welcome back to The New Health, and we are here again with Adam Lane-Smith, the attachment specialist. In the last few weeks, we've gotten a lot of questions, Adam, about avoidant attachment and relationships, and I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit on that for us.
Absolutely. I get this question so often. I had to build a program around it because people are obsessed with avoidant attachment in their romantic relationships. So if you're at home asking these questions, you're not alone. Avoidant attachment style does pretty much wonderfully everywhere in life except romantic relationships. This is where they start to fall apart. And it's not their fault. It's because they are driven by novelty dopamine. So they jump into a relationship, and for the first 6 months, you get novelty dopamine, which this is new, you're new, those are new. Everything is new and fun and exciting, so the sex is amazing, it's passionate, and they understand dopamine, the avoidant person, so they try to give dopamine to the other person and make them feel good. It's a temporary exchange of good feelings. They don't mean to manipulate you, usually. They're very ethical most of the time. They don't mean to hurt you, and they don't understand that other people are bonding more deeply through a different bonding hormone. So they're giving dopamine, and it exchanges. But at 6 months, that falls off a cliff, and you need to start renewing that dopamine. This is where people start saying, I'm just not feeling it. Maybe we should spice things up in the bedroom with these toys or these activities or this extra person. All kinds of things start flooding in to try to make the relationship continue. Some avoidant people at this point do start fantasizing about other partners. Many of them, most of them push that off, and they will not cheat because they're very ethical and they're focused on their principles. But some of them do feel tempted in that direction because that's all they understand is dopamine. So the partner starts detecting that and says, well, maybe they're cheating on me. Maybe that's happening. And they're usually not. They're not fulfilled, and they don't know how to get fulfilled. This is where a lot of, if the avoidant is a man, the other woman, the woman in the relationship will start to say, why doesn't he understand what I'm offering? Why doesn't he want to connect with me and get this nurturing? Why is he not coming to drink from this well? I have all this water to feed him. And he's over there going, man, my throat's really parched. Oh, well, I guess I'll just live this way for the rest of my life. And he has no idea how to access that oxytocin bonding, the serotonin, the vasopressin, any of that in the relationship.
So my question is this the same for men and for women?
Ooh, great question, because most avoidant people are men. There are quite a few avoidant women as well. Most anxious people are women, but there are quite a few anxious men as well. The thing to know is this, okay? Oxytocin, one of its major roles is in breastfeeding, also in birth and uterine contractions and a number of things. It does a lot of things. So the female system is designed around oxytocin. Oxytocin releases in the absence of stress and cortisol. When you feel calm, when you feel safe, you're on a calm walk with your partner, you're holding hands, you're romantic, you're on a date, you're engaged fully but no stress. That's oxytocin. And a lot of women prioritize this kind of bonding because it feels incredible. Men have receptors for this, but men have more receptors for a hormone called vasopressin. Now, vasopressin is important when you have a stressful life. You have to achieve, you have to grow. Men would hunt the mammoth together, and we would bond with other people that helped us overcome and decrease stress. So when men achieve things with you or with their friends, guys are playing Call of Duty together and taking out the other squad, when you go to war together, when you build something together, you build a company together, you go through trial together, you release a chemical that says, we are a good team. I love this. I'm connected to you. Let's never lose this. That's vasopressin bonding. Men have more receptors than women do. And when your oxytocin receptors get blocked by that high cortisol so that you can't oxytocin bond, guess what? The vasopressin receptors are still there, and your oxytocin receptors shift into accepting more vasopressin. So it is ready for a wildfire to rage through there and bond. So when women can learn to vasopressin bond with their avoidant man, the bonding is incredible. This is what keeps him bonded to you for life and makes him passionate, opens the door usually for him to start oxytocin bonding with you and build phenomenal trust.
This is great. So I guess I have two questions on that. One is sex, orgasm. We know with orgasm, women release oxytocin. I believe men do as well.
A little bit.
Is that, yeah?
A little bit. It's different for us. We do get some oxytocin. It appears to move the fluid, and you can bond through deep levels of oxytocin, but you're going to bond better even during sex with vasopressin, which is incredibly important.
And vasopressin release for men, though, is with working together, solving a
Achieving
problem,
things together.
achieving things
Which,
together.
you know what?
Also can be in the bedroom, though.
Absolutely. So
Okay.
this is what most women miss, is most women walk into the bedroom experience, okay? And they are trying, if they're anxiously attached, they're approval seeking, they forget their own body exists, and they try to please him, and they have very low oxytocin anyway, so then they struggle to achieve much arousal. They struggle to achieve that first orgasm, because you need a lot of oxytocin to build to that. And then they can't have multiples, and that really reduces your fertility rates. If you have no orgasms, your fertility rates are often fairly low. It also creates a really big problem when you're breastfeeding later. If you do get pregnant, it creates a problem during birth. You may have to have a C-section because you're not able to move the baby through properly. They may have to give you Pitocin, which is more synthetic oxytocin that forces it out. So that's incredibly important for women to have that aspect, that nurturing, that emotional intimacy. But for men, it's more vasopressin bonding is what you're going to experience. So what is one thing that the couple could achieve together during that sexual experience? Well, it's usually the female orgasm. That's something you can both work toward diligently. And this is why when a man loves a woman, and ladies at home, hopefully you've experienced this. Guys at home, you know what I'm going to talk about here in a minute. When he really loves her, what does he do? Babe, we're going to do 10 of them today. You're going to have 10. We're going to have to drag you out of this room at the end. We'll have a wheelchair ready for you. And she goes, I don't want 10. I could barely get one. What she's doing, if she's faking it, shutting it down, I don't care, right? What she's doing is shutting down that vasopressin bonding he's trying to do with her. He is trying to achieve arbitrary, weird, random goals, but it's putting a number on it. And then you're going to high five. You're half dead in the bed, but he's like, high five, we did it. and you can do that. This is one way of vasopressin bonding together in the bedroom, is achieving that together.
So then how can that man and woman connect more on that? I mean, I don't think that sitting down and having a checklist is probably the most romantic idea for them. So for some people it may be.
Right.
So what would you recommend for these couples to do?
It begins way before the bedroom. So being able to talk about the things in the bedroom that will help achieve an orgasm or multiples actually comes from that practice is way too hard. So you start at, well, okay, what are your basic goals? Can we align on our goals? What are your principles? Can we align on those? We've talked, and here you guys are recognizing the early levels of trust, levels 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. If you build a level 4 trust together, what we would call a secure attachment, then you can talk about problems here. Well, what's working on our marriage? What's not working in our marriage? What's working in our relationships? What's working in our home? How can we solve problems together? And that lowers the difficulty then to be in the bedroom and say, hey, we just had sex. That was so great. What can we do next time that's going to be more fulfilling for you? I noticed, you kind of had a difficult time reaching orgasm. And she doesn't go, oh no, he noticed. She says, yeah, that's true. I did kind of have a hard time. Well, great. But it's great that we've called it out. Let's work on this together. How can we improve your process for next time? How can we make you have a better, and she'll probably say, well, more eye contact. More touch my face. Don't just stare at my boobs. Touch my face. Talk with me a little bit. Hey, before, can we do some more warm up, right? That foreplay that we laugh at women for needing, that's a boost of oxytocin. So oxytocin during the day, holding hands, hugging, connecting. Oxytocin then in that non-sexual touch, right? Hugs, connections, caresses, oxytocin through great conversation, leading into oxytocin with foreplay, leading into oxytocin in the intimacy, in the intercourse act, if that's what you do, and then leading further into the orgasm, into more orgasms, because an orgasm gives you oxytocin each time. It's a chain effect, but you have to build it over time, and your partner needs to be engaged with you building that.
Now for men during the day, with all of this oxytocin release, holding hands, do they have a vasopressin release through the same, or how can women help men with their for preparing?
Now this is a hard topic. What can women do for men, and can men accept it? So avoidantly attached men cannot accept the bonding that women are going to give them, typically, because what women are going to offer you, right? We see on the internet all the time, what do women bring to the table? What do they bring to the table? They bring oxytocin bonding. They bring that GABA to soothe your nervous system. They bring that serotonin to really give you deep, fulfilling connection and contentment. They do bring vasopressin bonding to you as well, and they reduce your cortisol levels consistently so that you can enter a peace mode, right? There's an old joke, and it's a little inappropriate, but if the man is the sword, the woman is the sheath. But when you put the sword away, then you have peace. So how can a man allow that? We can talk about that in the future, but men need to be open and able to receive that. And when you have high cortisol and avoidant attachment style, you cannot receive that oxytocin. So it looks like women offer you nothing except sex.
Wow, that's such a challenge. So how would we, then what would be the best? We were talking about men before and connection with other men and
That's an important aspect, honestly, is men going through this process. If you are avoidantly attached out there right now, high performing business owner, that's great. Start focusing instead, maybe on the women in your life. Start with a male friend that you can trust. Run through those 4 levels of trust that we've talked about in the last couple weeks. Go back and watch it again. That would help. But go through those 4 levels of trust. Find a male friend that you can begin solving problems with. And then you don't talk about your problems and cry. You talk about them in what's called a solution-focused approach or a selective approach, so that you can share, here's a challenge I'm experiencing, here's what I'm going to do about it, I'd love you to keep me accountable on it. Have you ever had a problem like this? Tell me about it if you have. Let's solve these problems together. And then what problems are you experiencing? If you can go through those 4 levels of trust with one male friend, you'll begin vasopressin bonding. That opens the door for oxytocin bonding. Suddenly you can experience it. Now you can go home and experience it with your wife or your girlfriend.
That's great. That's great. So you can actually experience, I like the idea of feeling. Like, how do you feel in your body when it comes to these neurochemistry changes? So when a man then feels that vasopressin bonding with a male friend, they can feel more settled in their nervous system?
Absolutely. The number one thing when male coaching clients come into me that we work on first is the 4 levels of trust, and then who in their life they can do that with. Sometimes, yes, it's their wife or their girlfriend, but the threshold is very high and it feels very risky. So instead, they find a male friend, and that's where I point them at first. And as they begin to really bond that way, then suddenly they don't feel like a lone ape in a tree fighting off predators. They feel like a lone ape who suddenly has a good, trusted friend at his back. Now you can rest. Now you calm down. And that proof of concept that someone else is trustworthy, that suddenly questions everything you've ever believed. And now maybe you can go home and talk to your wife.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much to Adam Lane-Smith here with us again today. Tell us how everybody in the audience can reach you and can find you.
Sure. So I am on adamlanesmith.com is my website. I did build a program for fixing this called How to Love an Avoidant Man, so that is on there. Coaching with me is also available there, and I'm on every social media platform. I have a huge presence right now. I'm honored to be able to teach that many people.
Well, thank you so much. And be sure to join us again next week when Adam Lane-Smith will be back to speak with us about attachment styles some more. And please stay tuned after these messages for our next guest.